People of Reddit, what's a mystery that still hasn't been solved? The Brandon Lawson case. Guy runs out of gas on a highway, calls his brother to help him get gas, then makes a 911 call telling them to send the police. Recordings available on YouTube. Then disappears. When his brother and the police arrived, his truck was still sitting there. What do you think ended up happening to him? You can hear a possible second person in his second call, and a faint bang. So, I guess he saw a crime, and was chased down, and was frightened by his encounter. So in response he calls the cops after he escaped, only to be found again by who he was running from and attacked. In the 80s, my sister, age 10, Cassie, ran away from my dad's house in Portland. They found her stuff at a gas station a couple days later, but she was never seen again. Later, a guy said he killed her, but then said he was only lying to get on TV and got alibied. They never found a body or any other suspects. The disappearance of William Tyrrell. William Tyrrell was a 3-year-old kid from Kendal in New South Wales, Australia. He was playing in the backyard of his foster grandmother's house with his sister when he had all of a sudden disappeared. People have many different theories. For example, he had been accidentally hit by his neighbor's car, or that he had ran away. 2 women had claimed that they had heard that William was taken by a pedophile, killed and stuffed in a suitcase and buried. Another man claimed that he saw William getting put in the boot of a car and driven off. It's been just over 6 years and still little to no traces of William have been found. As a former local to this area, it's crazy. The street is very quiet, so any loud noise, screaming, strange cars would be incredibly noticeable. Someone knows something. It's very obvious. Maybe everyone knows something, but there's a reason they all keep it secret. Where is Shirley Miscavige? She's fine. We are fine. All fine here. How are you? Boring conversation anyway. The Delphi murders. These murders occurred in a couple counties over from where I live. I pray their families eventually get some sort of justice. Same. It chills me almost every day, especially because one of my sisters is 12. When I was young, the plumber found a corpse in my father's basement. No, my dad didn't kill anyone. This poor guy had been dead and locked in an iron coffin for over a century, and dad had only owned the place for a couple years. But the university called in by the police came up short. They were confident that the coffin wasn't sold locally, that it didn't contain anyone that had died in the Civil War, and that it wasn't a close family member of anyone living or working there at the time. They weren't even sure it was a he, and they weren't going to disturb the sealed remains to check. That may be the most interesting thing on here. Who is the piece of shit that took a bite out of my cousin's dog? The dog had a human-sized mouth chunk missing out of it. Vet said most likely human. But who the duck does something like that? Bite a chunk out of a dog. And he lives in a nice neighborhood. Matter of fact, in any neighborhood this is weird. This'll go into the WTF filing cabinet. Who killed John Bennett Ramsey? She was kidnapped and became Katy Perry. Seriously, that's an actual theory some people had. Zodiac Killer. I think one of their letters have been decrypted recently, but it didn't bring them any closer to finding them. I have a buddy whose mom is from California, lived in the area with her parents around the time he was active, had a neighbor who they knew pretty well, a nice guy from what they say. One day they see a police sketch of the Zodiac Killer on TV, and thought it looked a lot like him. One day mentioning it to him as a joke, he looked put by it and moved away shortly. They apparently still have a Christmas card or something from him somewhere in the family and want to find it to compare handwriting. Some weird shit. That is some scary stuff. After researching a lot about the Zodiac tonight, I came across an article that said that a lot of people called in saying their neighbors look like the Zodiac Killer description. He must have that familiar face, haha. That person could have truly been the Zodiac. Who knows? I think they are honestly dead at this point. DB Cooper. Quite possibly the greatest random story of all time. This is a really good one. Okay, so this will be a bit long, but it's an interesting story nevertheless. The Dennis Martin case. Dennis Martin, a boy who was 6 I believe, hiked up to Spunsfield in Smokies in 1969 along with his 10-year-old brother, father and grandfather. They got up to this field and met another family who introduced themselves as also having the surname Martin. The chances of that are low but possible. Anyway, the other family asks to play hide and seek with Dennis' family. So Dennis' dad sits with the other dad and watches his youngest son run behind a bush and hide from the seeker. He doesn't see him leave this bush at any point. After about half an hour, he believes his son is still there, so he goes to check behind the bush where he is hiding, but he was gone. He had vanished from an open field without making a single sound to alert his dad. Anyway, his dad sprints 2 miles down the trail back to the nearest park ranger area, shouting for his son. Nothing. He sprints 2 miles back up, shouting his name. Nothing. Meanwhile, during the game of hide and seek, or just after, a third family with the surname Key asks a park ranger where they can go to see some wild bears. The park ranger tells them to go about a mile up Rounds Creek and they should see some. Rounds Creek is below Spansfield, a good mile or two down the hill from the hill. So the second family walk about a mile up Rounds Creek and all of a sudden they hear what they described as a sickening, blood-curdling scream, as loud as you could imagine. Simultaneously to this, the boy says, "Oh look dad, a bear just ran behind that bush." The dad says, "No son, I don't think that's a bear. I think that's a man hiding behind a bush." Anyway, Dennis' dad gets back up to the trail and cops, park rangers and just about everyone has come to the scene now to get as much evidence as possible, but Dennis has just absolutely vanished out of thin air. This all happens around 4 PM, and by around 8:30 it was pouring with rain. Dennis' father didn't leave the park for 2 months in order to get as much evidence and clues as he possibly could. Then a couple of days in the Green Berets, fly in on a helicopter and go searching the woods. Yet they don't even tell anyone what they are searching for, and after searching, don't even let anyone know what they found or what they didn't find. And it was described by Dennis' father as the strangest thing he'd ever seen. But this is where it gets even weirder. The Key family who saw the so-called bear told the FBI about the sighting up Rounds Creek, and they said that they would take them to the area, but the FBI declined and said they would meet them outside of the park. And to add to this, Dennis' father only discovered about the Rounds Creek family until at least a week after the disappearance. This made him understandably mad, as he was wondering why he wasn't told anything, but they said that the times didn't match and that it wasn't relevant to the case. But the investigator with them at this time pulled Dennis' father to the side and told him that he knows that park like the back of his hand and the times match up perfectly. Anyway, years later, one of the most important investigators of the case came to Dennis' father's house to ask him about the case and to get information that he should know about. When he arrives, he gets told that him and his wife made a vow to never speak of Dennis' disappearance again as it has ruined their life. But the investigator tells him that he is the man that knows most about this case in the world and that he would be grateful if he could just have 15 minutes of his time. Dennis' father agrees and tells him the following. The family that saw the bear described the man to have something hunched over its shoulder as it hid behind the tree. There had been 12 disappearances in that same area in the years prior, and the agent who was covering all 12 of those cases committed suicide. A year prior to the disappearance, there was a reported attack on a park ranger by someone who was armed and dressed as an animal. And there are tons of other reporting of off-the-radar people who live in them forests, dressed up as animals. 51 years still unsolved. The maximum headroom incident. I want to know who did this so badly. It has no effect on my life whatsoever, but I need to know. There was someone on Reddit who thought they knew who did it, but those people ended up getting cleared as suspects. Was an interesting read. Oak Island, Nova Scotia. Something's buried there, and who knows what it is. I've been following this mystery long before the History Channel got a hold of it and ruined it. Same here. It was in a book I got from my school library in elementary school, and I was fascinated about it. The show honestly cheapened it for me. Don't dramatize it. The Canadian government should be putting money aside every budget to continue exploration. Fuck private companies and TV crews. Why would the Canadian government want to actually solve the mystery? It's a tourist attraction. Having an answer makes it not interesting to go to anymore. Not that you can really see anything there anyway. Just read about the fact that the Quran mentions a people called Sabians as fellow people of the book, along with Christians and Jews. Yet modern scholars have no idea who or what the Sabians were. Really, when I read about the Sabians in the Quran I thought they were known people like Christians and Jews. I had no idea they were mysterious. Interesting. A place in India has an unnatural amount of twins born each year and there is no explanation for it. And another unsolved mystery is that of the Zodiac Killer. Edit, add Jack the Ripper to the unsolved mystery list. Don't twins in a family lineage tend towards having more on the tree? I'd think it's just genetics. And if that area of India has people rural enough, over time those genes would spread through the community over generations. But people who moved from outside also are getting more twins. Unless they are somehow related. The third cicada puzzle. As far as I know, rumor has it the cicada puzzles are essentially headhunters for some government agency. It's an overly pretentious ARG. Dark matter and dark energy. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann disappeared in Portugal while on vacation with her family and was missing from her room and gone without a trace when checked on. Still not found to this day. Greek fire. It was basically napalm that couldn't be extinguished with water, although for some reason it could be extinguished by pissing on it. Very strange. Fairness. Because we aren't sure what it was exactly, we can't be sure what was and wasn't true about it. The piss thing might well be an exaggeration. It might have been some kerosene they set on fire. While not extinguished by water, it may well just have floated on it. The disappearance of the Beaumont children and the expected linked case of Joan Radcliffe and Kirst Gordon. Where do the socks go in the dryer? Turn into extra Tupperware lids, but never the correct Tupperware lids. Is there life beyond Earth? Life on Mars? Matt Damon was there for a while. Maura Murray case. It's one of the most interesting ones I've come across. She disappeared under extremely strange circumstances. Maura's story is one of the reasons I would never kill myself. As a student currently in nursing school, I understand how incredibly difficult it is and how much pressure she had to be under. A lot of my friends in my program have turned to alcohol to help numb the pressure on the weekends and between semesters. I really think she got incredibly overwhelmed, was drinking and was terrified of being charged with a DUI and knew she would be kicked out of her program and left her vehicle and sadly passed away due to the nasty element of the winter. Completely plausible. I also sometimes think she was a victim of opportunity. There were no footprints found in the snow and she couldn't have gotten too far on foot. The tracking dogs also lost her scent abruptly down the street, which they said indicated she may have gotten into a car. So sad either way. Why my cat drags my work shoes into my bed and leaves them next to my head and pillow. He started doing this when he hit 7 years old. Freaking weirdo. He just wants you to leave so he can party on his own. My cats are the laziest animals ever when I'm home. When the house is empty they are completely different animals. What happened to Listen Froon and Chris Kramers? Who took those creepy photographs? Why did they have wrong password attempts on their phones? This is probably one of the scariest unsolved mysteries I've ever come across. I've read a lot about this because it creeps me out. Best answer I've found is that they got off trail. One of them was hurt or fell. Then they were trying to get back to safety and taking pictures to use the flash on their phone in the dark to conserve battery. As they became dehydrated they made errors in their phone password due to disorientation. They died and animals picked apart their remains. Poor things. Cautionary tale to say the least. That wouldn't explain how their bag and belongings ended up 8 kilometers away days later in a rainforest all dry. That area was constantly receiving rain. Also, 8 kilometers on foot through a mountainous rainforest is next to impossible for someone who's not a pro, and these girls had almost zero experience in that kind of an excursion. The bones discovered had no scratch marks on them, ruling out animal bites, and one of the bone fragments was bleached. The Voynich manuscript. The person who wrote it was either from a parallel dimension, part of a secret esoteric order that invented its own language, or just stark raving mad. Any explanation would be interesting. Of course people make up their own languages and draw fantastical things, but the amount of time and dedication put into this thing back when all books were handwritten, it's baffling. What happened to Claudia Lawrence? disappeared from York. She was walking to work at the university, I think it was, and she never arrived. She was seen on CCTV walking to work, but that was the last she was seen. I live in York, and it was a big thing. I think she's threatened to tell the wife of one of the blokes she was seeing, and they've killed her either on purpose or by accident. She was well known for hanging off married men at the Flag and Whistle pub. Saw it myself too. But her parents and friends denied she was like that. Always buildings being built in York. She could easily be under one. My dad was a taxi driver and there was a regular customer who lived a few doors down from her and he was obsessed with case. He'd tell my dad all the ways she could have been killed and how if she was thrown in the river DNA would be washed off and she'd probably never be found. Weird shit like that. No surprise B was a suspect for a while. What happens to some of the people that disappear in national forests? Yeah, some remains are found here and there but some are just gone. As an off-roader and backpacker who frequents national forests, there's a lot of places one could fall that are simply inaccessible without risking the same outcome. Chances are it's nothing nefarious, just big expanses of rugged terrain. When I was younger I spent a lot time in national forests and seen a lot of those inaccessible places. For me it's the sheer volume of people that disappear every year. I believe there are logical reasons. Hundreds to thousands of people a year is a bit much though. When the toast comes out of the toaster, where did the bread go? Top 10 questions science can't answer. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.